Welcome to Avira's podcast series, which focuses on redefining medical affairs and evidence planning, digitization, and AI. My name is Sanjeev, CEO of Avira Digital. The company specializes in medical affairs planning, digitization, and analytics across the life sciences industry. Today, we have Samm, Senior Vice President, Medical Affairs and HEOR at EPM Scientific. Samm brings 10 plus years of experience in medical affairs and would love to hear more from her. Samm, thank you for joining us. And can you please introduce yourself?
Of course. So thank you again so much for having me here. And as a recruiter, I don't think I have the traditional journey of getting to medical affairs. I did go to university and decided that while that was all good and great, it wasn't giving me the personal experience. So I actually ended up spending 5 years living abroad across a couple different continents and really getting that human factor experience. And I think that's what naturally gravitated me towards the recruitment sector. I dabbled in a couple different industries and areas before I landed in medical affairs and health economics. And since then, it's just been absolutely captivating. And I really can't see myself moving to a different market. So it's cool to see how much we're seeing evolution in this space, because it means that my job is every single day different and that I get to talk to people who are really excited about where the future is going.
Fantastic. That is so true. And I think since you probably saw and you brought it up, the point of evolution. So the way in last 10 years, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how this pharmaceutical and biotech industry is moving, especially with tons of data coming in and with Gen AI disruptions, what your journey looks like in the pharma industry?
It's hard to think about my job 6 years ago, 5 years ago, because you have to think about the massive transformation we had during COVID and where we saw digital kind of come to the forefront of how we do things effectively. I think when you start to look at medical affairs and maybe where it's going to be in 5 to 10 years, there are some really good articles to obviously review and see updates from. And you'll see those from McKinsey and PwC, and they really evaluate where medical affairs is going. But it's very hard to say what that's going to be because we don't necessarily know how fast technology advancement is going to continue to go.
Yeah.
If it stays at the same acceleration, there's no cap to where medical affairs could be. And that's really exciting. I think if we look at how we are moving now, there are a couple key things that we can definitely talk about. And I think the first key competency that I see in medical affairs that people have to have is the willingness and ability to work with technology and AI and machine learning. Because I really think that within medical affairs, and let me know how you think about this, there's a pendulum of willingness, and it goes from excitement to fear of using AI or AI taking someone's job. And I really think where people need to go is if they do have that fear and apprehension, they have to make sure it doesn't leave them rigid, because there won't be space for someone who's rigid and unwilling to work with technology. It's truly just not the future. I think that's one of the biggest things that I see right now is anyone that does have that fear, we need to get rid of that. We need to find a way to make them comfortable with how fast technology is becoming a part of medical affairs.
Fantastic. And I know, Samm, you worked across the different agencies, the pharma, the med devices, the CROs, the biotechnologies, right? And as a specialist recruiter, right, covering across the medical affairs space, what inspired you to specialize in medical affairs? And I've seen a lot of jobs in the integrated evidence generation across Europe, across US. So tell us a little bit about what's your point of view on that?
Yeah, I spent 4 years supporting the US market and exclusively supporting the US market or global entities that sat in the US. And I think as I moved over to Europe, one of the key things I wanted to do was continue to work within medical affairs because of how excited people are about becoming more integrated in the strategic development in pharmaceutical companies. And I think a lot of the passion for patient centricity and the key points of being cross-functional and really being leaders in the space is seen authentically in medical affairs professionals, which makes me really enjoy my job. I think the other part of that, and quite selfishly on why I like working with medical affairs, is that it is one of the faster developing spaces because we're seeing all of this different technology come in, because we're seeing internal data resources in all of these massive data sets coming through evolving space, which means that my job, just like anyone else's job, is not going to be the same day to day. We'll continue to see evolution and we'll continue to see where medical affairs continues to focus. And that's just a really exciting part of the space.
So I'm just going to ask you a very interesting question, the way sometimes the companies ask us. 2 years back, we didn't know enough about AI into the whole space, right? And you've been
Yeah.
advising to a lot of executives in the process, HR professionals, technology across the medical affairs spectrum. So in the next, let's take a 5 years horizon, how the medical or the senior management should plan their medical affairs team with their key competencies, with skills they need for their success on the field and the operations, working across the medical affairs spectrum or across the drug life cycle.
Yeah. How I communicate with a hiring manager or someone in senior leadership in medical affairs and how I communicate to a talent acquisition partner when we talk about AI and the usage of AI is kind of two different conversations.
Mhm.
I think the one thing that is continuously the same, and it's the same within my organization, is to implement advancements and innovation in
Yeah.
small settings or in small capacities and continue to test how that is received and used by your organization. And you need to continue to make sure that evolution of fixing and implementing new activities is done in a slow process where a lot of people can become quite comfortable with transformation. Most companies, I think, will already be on this pace where they've implemented AI in some kind of streamlining process operationally, or they look at how they receive data from their MSLs and getting that over to leadership. So we already see some of these things coming. I think what will be interesting to see is if we continue to have AI and data be utilized across so many different parts of the pharmaceutical company, where are the rigors and the lines going to stay between clinical, medical, and commercial? Because that's going to start getting more and more blurred. You're going to need medical affairs professionals who are sitting earlier in the life cycle so that they can make sure that the right data is being pulled to get us to an effective conversation with HCPs. On the reverse side of that, as we become more data driven with our scientific information, what is the relationship and what is the necessity of having MSLs, market access, and sales professionals out in the field? Does AI push us to have a more streamlined field approach in that regard? So there's a lot of evolutions that are going to be coming, things that we'll probably implement in the next 5 years. What roles are still going to be available or what new roles are going to be there, which is really exciting. And I think we will see more roles opening. There will be this continued need for either people who are doing training and making sure operationally things are moving in the right way. We'll definitely have key medical affairs excellence roles who are really working on making things effectively move. I think we're going to have more people that are creating the human factor. So while they'll have AI and chatbots helping them as a second resource, there still needs to be a human on the front end of that. I think everything that we talk about in every single conference I go to, most podcasts I listen to, is that AI is a stepping stone for people to have a greater relationship with stakeholders.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam, thank you for bringing that AI thing. AI has a multiple components, whether it's an NLPs or you're talking about advanced analytics or you're talking about Gen AI. But I think thanks to the Gen AI, a lot of excitement started at the executive level. So let me ask you, okay, Sam, let's say you're meeting a medical affairs leader who has the large program for digitization of integrated evidence planning for their entire worldwide operations. And they want to do the entire impact measurements around it, including advanced analytics, AI. So it's a big 3 years program. What innovative approach, and I'm just thinking loud here, what innovative approach you can explore to attract top talents or setting up their entire organization,
Yeah.
particular considering the interaction of scientific, technology, data skills. Love to know about your practical experience here, if any.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think it's interesting to consider that attraction and retention is no longer about people coming or going from your current company. It could be that people are coming and going from your department. And the one big concern that I do hear from medical affairs leadership is that we are seeing the want of medical affairs professionals to move to different functions. So we're seeing this transition of medical affairs professionals wanting to go to market access or even marketing and maybe even data generation and all of these different spaces that are opening up. So how do we make sure we're attracting and keeping talent within medical affairs? I think first we need to have a continued global approach to how we see medical affairs, but really evaluating both regional and local impact on that. So some countries can move faster than others in AI integration. For example, in Switzerland, not all records are digitalized yet. You still have paper records at some hospitals,
Wow.
but you've got places like Israel who have had digital records for over 30 years and were one of the forefront for having kind of this advancement. And so when we look at AI and the innovation of it, while we want to have this really global approach to it, we have to make sure that it can be utilized at a regional and local level. And I think some of the things that management can do to both retain talent and attract talent at all levels and at all regions is to make sure that they have a fantastic development program. This should include trainings and retrainings on AI. This should include secondments and opportunities to go to other departments so that they can get that business acumen and understand how other departments are using digital transformation. There's things like that that we should definitely be looking for in that place. I think the other thing that I hear a lot from medical affairs professionals is that there's not a budget for them to go to non-scientific conferences or master classes. While we want everyone to have this acumen and ability to work with AI and large data sets and in all of these different buzzwords that are coming up, if they don't actually understand it, we're putting ourselves into a really bad situation. So if you want to retain and attract talent, you have to put through the base to make them successful.
Yeah. Sam, you brought up very interesting point on the different country levels, right? There's resourcing. What are the difficult challenge? Do you see the trends where some countries are well positioned to take advantage of the Gen AI and analytics and all of that? And pharma by nature are the global companies.
Yeah.
So where you see your challenges and opportunities probably in different countries, maybe I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, some of the challenges are that, again, not all countries are as advanced, and not all countries are seeing AI through regulation of their countries. They don't see AI the same way that maybe Americans do or the UK. And so we also have to evaluate how much interaction they're seeing with AI on their daily life. So some of the things that I highly recommend to organizations that are trying to get prepared for this continued transformation over the next 10 years is one, don't use AI just in the scientific side of things. Make sure you're using these different digital tools and platforms to build a culture. If you start using different tools to make people feel more inclusive, both at a regional and a global level, you're going to have them wanting to engage with the different platforms and the different methods that you bring in for other forms of AI. So I think that's one thing to consider that maybe not everyone thinks about. And then I think the other thing that I would highly recommend for medical affairs teams, if they're large enough, is actually to look at having someone exclusively in an IT capacity working for the medical affairs department. Because there's so much data coming in, because there's so many new systems and platforms being utilized, it's very beneficial to have someone who can sit in between the true IT groups and communicate that effectively over to a medical affairs, scientifically focused kind of group. Or if an organization has the budget, bringing someone in who just sits on IT medical affairs. That can be medical operations, medical excellence, however you want to look at it, getting someone who can sit between those two.
Sam, thank you. Thank you so much for giving your perspective and participating in this podcast of redefining the digital strategies and giving your perspective on Gen AI and impactful partnership with medical affairs and the healthcare systems, how companies are doing or upgrading the skills. So thank you very much and appreciate your time. And learn more about organization, how we can partner, and Avira Digital can partner for the medical planning and end-to-end integrated evidence planning, including from strategy to tactics to measuring impact of all evidences and providing the analytics and digitization services. So thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you.